All right, so this video is on, it's our third video on lines, starting with standard form. If you happen to be just joining us this week, you might want to go back, actually, let me change that. You should go back and at least watch the videos leading up to this, lines 1 and lines 2, because we're going to continue moving on with that. So, this video is about starting with standard form. So, standard form for a line is going to come in the form ax plus by equals c. Now these capital letters are referring to actual numbers, and a couple rules, and I'm not going to really ever test you over whether you know these rules or anything like that, but a couple rules for standard form is that a, b, and c are non-fractions. My cat's meowing. A has to be positive. And so those are the rules. So an example of standard form would be like 2x plus 3y equals 7. So to kind of clarify, we've got standard form, which is this. Another rule is standard form is that x and y are on the same side. Of the equal sign. And the constant is on the other side. So you see that x and y are both on the left side of the equal sign, and that 7, which is the constant because it has no variable attached to it, is on the right. Now 2 and 3 are like constants, but because they're attached to the variable, we call them coefficients. And this becomes a variable term. This is a variable term, and then this is a constant term. So the constant term is what's on the other side of the equal sign. Okay, so we've got standard form, and then as a reminder, you also know slope-intercept form, and that was in our previous videos. Well, video 2. And slope-intercept form might look something like y equals 2/3 x minus 9, or something like that. And this is called slope-intercept form because from it you can see the slope and the y-intercept of the line, and it's specifically the y-intercept. So I've noticed that a few of you have been messing that up and putting it on the x-axis. The y-intercept goes on the y-axis, which is the vertical one. Okay, so we're going to get that one that I had in standard form. We're going to talk about how to get that into slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form is something like this, where the rules of slope-intercept form is that y is completely alone and has a coefficient of 1. So I want to get y completely alone here. So I'm solving for y. And that means getting this alone. And remember, when you're trying to solve for a specific variable, you want to first get the whole term alone. And we're going to do several problems of practice with this because I know that this was something that we did very minimally earlier and that it was a little bit of a struggle as well. So we want to get that whole term alone first. And so we're going to move this term, which is positive 2x. And so to move that, because it's positive 2x, we're going to subtract 2x from both sides. Now, you're welcome to write that after the 7, but I kind of like to write it before the 7 because slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, and the term with x is usually written first. So this goes away, and what I have is 3y equals, and like I said, I like to write it as this, and then that's positive 7, so I'm going to make it plus 7. Okay, and then my next step is to finish getting y alone. So I'm going to divide by 3 because it's 3 times y. And I'm going to divide this side by 3 as well. And sometimes people have an easier time seeing what to do with this if they show each term divided by 3. So what's happening here is really I'm doing this. So y equals negative 2x over 3 plus 7 over 3, which may be easier to write as negative 2/3 x plus 7/3. And that may be the easier route to go writing this. And then you have an easier time from this. Now you can see the slope and the y-intercept of the line, and you can graph this using our slope-intercept form method. So I have a line here that we're going to graph, 2x minus y equals 5. Now we know another way we can get both intercepts, the x and the y-intercept, and you know how to do that. But I'm going to focus on using slope-intercept form so that we can practice that. So we're going to start first by getting it into slope-intercept form, which again is y equals mx plus b. And then once we have that, we can graph it appropriately, and I will review that for you. So your goal is to get y alone, and here's y. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get this to the other side, positive 2x. To get that to the other side, I'm going to subtract 2x. And if it helps you, make a little line here to show the wall of the equal sign. So I can see that this really goes away. Don't forget the sign in front of the y. So negative y. And then again, I like to write this in front, but you are welcome to write it as 5 minus 2x. But I think when students do that, sometimes we forget which one is the slope and which one's the intercept. The slope is always the one that goes with x and not just the first one that you see. So that's why I like to write 2x first, because then it is the first one that you see, and it makes it easier to remember. And then this is positive 5, so I'm going to put plus 5. And then I need to finish getting y alone, which technically it's not alone because there's a negative in front of it, which is like having a negative 1 times. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. And if it helps, like I said on the previous screen, we can just divide each term by negative 1 because then it makes it easier to see. But technically, you're dividing by negative 1 and then you're distributing that negative 1 to both of them. I'm going to get rid of that to make it less confusing looking. So what I get here is y equals 2x minus 5. Now, remember, with this you can see mx plus b. So the slope is 2, it's the m, and the y-intercept is negative 5, it's the b. So how do we plot? Well, we plot first the y-intercept. So on our y-axis, we go down 5 and plot a point. My slope is 2, which is a whole number, and I can make any whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1, and that gives me rise over run. So then I go up to, from my y-intercept, I go up to right 1, and I have a point right here. And then I keep doing that until I run out of space. Alternatively, I can go down to left 1. I can do the opposite of both of them, and then I can draw my line. Okay? All right. So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get this into slope-intercept form first. So again, I want to get y alone, which means getting the term with y alone first. So I'm going to subtract x. So 4y equals, and I'm going to put that in front like I've said before. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 4 to get, because it's 4 times y, and you undo multiplication using division. So divide by 4. So y equals negative 1/4 x, because there's a 1 right here. If you'd prefer, so that I'm not skipping too much, you could do this. Like before I wrote them out separately. I'm showing you, like before I wrote divide by -1, divide by -1. Now I'm showing you how that distributive property works just so you can see that. And then this. And then I can write it as, I can make that into just the fraction -1/4. And then this is 6. And that's my equation. And so what I do is my y-intercept is that one that's by itself, -6. So I go down 6. And then my slope is the coefficient of x. It's -1/4. Now with our slope being -1/4, we can make that -1/4, or we can make it 1/4. So that means that it goes down 1, right 4, and we keep doing that till we run out of space. And remember, always do that from the y-intercept. Or we can go up 1, left 4 from the y-intercept and do that till we run out of space. It should keep the same line, and if it doesn't, you're not graphing it correctly. Okay, one more example just for practice. All right, so we have this line. Again, we want to get y alone, so we're going to start by getting the -5y alone. So I'm going to subtract 3x from each side. So I get -5y equals -3x minus 45. And then I'm going to divide. Again, I have -5 times y. So how do you undo multiplication? You divide. And this time I'm going to show it to you again like this. So I get y equals, I'm going to put these numbers together now. So negative over negative is positive, so it becomes positive 3/5 x. And then this becomes positive plus 9. So plot the y-intercept first, which is the one that's by itself, so 9. And then 3/5. Well, 3/5 means I go up 3, right 5. So from there, I've run out of space on my graph. So instead, I could go down 3, left 5. So down 3, left 5. Down 3, left 5. And then, of course, I've run out of space anyways because it's kind of a big number. But remember, you can always do the exact opposite with both of those. So this was a little bit of practice using slope-intercept form also. So if you're still struggling with that, then make sure that you send me an email and we can set up a time to meet. Thanks. So now you have an assignment posted that is due tomorrow at the end of the day.